Surprise! Hello everyone and welcome to the official patch notes for Wild Rift patch 6.2a. I'm sure a lot of you are very surprised, as well as I am. I got surprised by Riot yesterday and they were like, oh, a new patch notes are dropping tomorrow. A new patch is dropping on Thursday. Here you go. I was like, okay. It's only been a week since the new patch, but I guess there are some changes that Riot wanted to make for the new season. And of course, one of the biggest patches that we saw in a long time in patch 6.2. It's not going to be the longest of patch notes, but it's definitely going to be some very impactful changes coming to Thursday. New thing with emulators. I actually don't know anyone in Wild Rift that actually uses an emulator. But that's no longer a thing, and I don't think it should have ever been a thing in the first place anyway. But there you go, emulators can no longer be used. Champion changes. Lee Sin is always a very difficult champion to buff or even nerf because he's one of the highest skill champions in the game. You look at players in like Sovereign in EU or even Challenger in EU that know the mechanics of Lee Sin and know how to carry on Lee Sin, they could completely 1v9 any game that they play. So I'm sure a lot of high elo junglers at the moment are looking at these Lee Sin buffs and thinking, wow, he's going to be the most broken jungler in the game. But because he has that high mechanical skill set, the lower elos don't really know how to perform on him, and they don't really know how to use his combos correctly, things like that. And he actually has one of the lowest win rates right now over in China in the jungle, so they did decide to give him a buff. Note that none of these buffs actually buff his damage, which I think is very important. They only buff like his shielding, his cooldown, and also his base HP. Base HP is actually pretty nice because Lee Sin is a very early game champion, so the extra 30 HP is going to allow him to trade a lot better in the early game, helping skirmishes towards scuttle crabs, and also try and look for earlier ganks. Cooldown on the first ability is going to help with both jungle clear and just engaging in general, just making sure the ability is up as much as possible. The cooldown of Safeguard has also gone down as well. 2 seconds in the early game is pretty big, but only 0.5 seconds when you get into the mid game. And then base shield has also gone up as well. In general, I don't think these buffs will do too much. I think they're nice buffs in general. I think the big thing, like I mentioned, is that because there are no damage buffs in here, I don't think he'll really change at all. In my tier list, he already sits in the S tier. And by the way, I will be releasing my full tier list for the new season and also patch 6.2 as well. That'll be releasing tomorrow, so make sure you keep an eye on that one, and make sure you subscribe to the channel as well to keep an eye out on all the content I'll be doing for patch 6.2. But yeah, overall nice changes to Lee Sin. Again, very scary changes, but we'll have to wait and see if these actually make a big impact when we get into gameplay. Master Yi, bonus attack speed going up on his ultimate. I think they're really trying to move Master Yi to build either more crit or build like more lethality with like Dustblade, for example, or even items like Collector. I played against a few Master Yis now that are starting to build more crit instead of on here, but I think that's just because the crit items in general at the moment are much stronger than on hit items. You know, Master Yi can use items like Phantom Dancer to get a ton of attack speed, Bloodthirster for the, for the lifeline passive and for the extra damage that we receive. So I think they're trying to move him away, even more away from on hits because of the bonus attack speed that you get with your ultimate, and trying to build him more crit. But a little bit of a buff to Master Yi to just help him out in the jungle. Kha'Zix, definitely in my opinion, pretty underperforming at the moment. I don't think Kha'Zix is very strong in the meta. I think these buffs are pretty crazy though. 5 base damage on your passive is really nice, and 10% bonus damage on isolated targets. So when you get an isolated damage now, or you find an isolated champion, then you're going to be doing more damage with your passive and now more damage with your first ability, which is going to be really nice. And they also increase the armor by 5. Again, help him a little bit with early skirmishes and help him a little bit when he's trying to gank against, any sort of AD champions. Both these buffs are really nice though. I'm definitely gonna have to try Kha'Zix. I think he was like in a decent spot. I think he had pretty decent matchups as well, but I think the problem is that there are so many other junglers right now that are just, overperforming Kha'Zix in a way. And just, I think AD assassins are pretty weak at the moment because just in general, items like the new Death Stance coming in, AD carries now being harder to one-shot because everyone's building Bloodthirster. So AD assassins in general have definitely gotten weaker this patch. unless they build the new crit items like Rengar, for example. Shyvana, because the game is so damn fast-paced at the moment, I mean, I completely lost count of the amount of games that have ended in like 12 or 13 minutes. Games are ending so quickly now because you get so much extra gold from taking towers. Rift Herald can now possibly take 2 towers. Baron spawns earlier, even though the time has got reduced, but that just accelerates the game as well. And because of that, Shyvana and just a lot of farm junglers don't have enough time to farm, get their stacks, and get a few items under their belt. So that's why, in my opinion, why Shyvana is getting buffed this patch. Cooldown, the second ability, is going down at every single rank. And for the ultimate, the stacks that you get at 200 and at 400 stacks, the bonus movement speeds is going up and the Omnivamp is going up. I don't think this will change anything with Shyvana at all. Like I said, I still think games will be really fast pace, even though they're kind of changing the pacing of the game down here. But I still think the games will be very fast paced, and there's just not enough time now for Shyvana to farm jungle camps. Also, with the delay of spawn of Herald and Dragon, it means that you're not going to get a huge amount of stacks from Dragon anymore, and it gets super delayed. Elder Drake is delayed. Baron spawns a little bit earlier, but to be honest with you, like, it's pretty hard to kind of solo Baron when you're a Shyvana and you're not really that far ahead and you don't have that many stacks. But yeah, Dragon's, you know, being delayed and spawn definitely hurt Shyvana quite a bit. Ambessa, big thing with Ambessa is that she is by far the strongest champion in the game right now, top lane or jungle. I ban her in every single one of my games. She is so overpowered right now. New Sorelda's Grudge, new Death's Dance as well, being so overpowered. Trinity Force was already strong as well, so of course they had to nerf her, but they're only nerfing her first ability. But you do have to keep note that this is quite a big nerf. So the cooldown is going up by 1 second every single rank. So the big thing here, so the Cunning Sweep base damage is going down, but this is if you don't hit enemies on the outer edge. Drake Hound's edge base damage is also going down, but it's going down by 20 damage. So if you're hitting like jungle camps, or if you're hitting enemies on the outer edge, which you should be aiming for most of the time, you still get double damage compared to the base damage, but it is going down. And then the Sundering Slam, the second part of your first ability, the straight line, the first target base damage is also going down by 20. So your full combo now of your first ability, where you hit enemies on the outer edge, and when you hit the first enemy with your first ability, you're losing out on 40 base damage, which is a lot. That is a lot of damage. And then other targets as well has also gone down by 10. So if you hit enemies just normally without the outer edge, then you're only losing 10 damage. But again, your full combo when you hit enemies on the outer edge and when you hit them with your second part of your first ability, you're losing out on 40 base damage. I honestly still don't think this is going to be enough though to nerf Ambessa enough. Her other abilities are still very powerful. The hidden buff on her third ability, where it's now quicker to cast. The second ability being able to dodge crowd control, and of course our ultimate just being so powerful in Wild Rift. I still think even after these changes, she'll still be one of the best junglers, and she'll also still be one of the best top laners as well. Again, you're losing out on quite a lot of damage, but like I said, with so many of the new Yordle items coming in that are just buffing her even more, it's still going to be difficult to try and lock her down, and she's still going to do a ton of damage. Miss Fortune, one of the best performing AD carries at the moment in the current meta. Again, another pretty huge nerf. With the love tap, the damage when you hit 3 stacks, it's going from 30 plus 75% of your bonus attack damage to now 15. So they're cutting the passive damage in half, and also they're cutting the bonus attack damage as well. So that's also going down by from 75 to 40%. And then Miss Fortune's damage to the target after you damage them with 3 stacks is also going down from 8 to 13 to now 6 to 10. This is pretty big nerfs to Miss Fortune. I mean, Miss Fortune now is a lot more focused on auto attacks and single target damage. You know, you don't really build her with lethality items anymore, like Grudge, for example. You more want to build her more towards her attack damage and more towards her auto attacks rather than her abilities. And that's because of how strong this ability was, or this passive was, I should say. Now with these passives, this passive being nerfed, I'm not really too sure. They're also nerfing her ricochet bullet damage as well, which was the most oppressive thing to play during the laning phase. Like, this always hit you from like a million miles away. You wouldn't even know what hit you most of the time, and you won't even know how this ability hit you, because you just bounce it off a minion onto an enemy champion. 10% damage nerf is not too much. This is still going to be super overpowered during the laning phase, but the passive being nerfed is definitely going to be a huge thing for Miss Fortune. I definitely think it's going to make her weaker to play. Even though she is a very strong AD carry, she does come with her weaknesses as well. Of course, with her being a super mobile AD carry, she could be easily locked down by like Ambessa Ultimate, for example, or any sort of crowd control on the enemy team. And also, she doesn't have the longest of attack ranges. So with her passive being nerfed, her first ability being nerfed, it might put her a little bit down in power. Then there's some system changes. Of course, the meta, just TLDR at the moment, with where the meta is looking at the moment, with the delay of the Dragon and Herald being spawned, a lot of junglers right now, before the 6-minute mark, at like 5 minutes, for example, they are ganking a lane, say that's top lane or bot lane, and they are taking the tower before the first objective spawns. And because of this new meta, and because how quickly it is to take down the first tower, because the tower plates has got nerfed, then all you can do is wait until the shield goes down on the second tier towers, so the one before the inhibitor towers. Then you can use Herald to take 2 towers in the game. So you, at 5 minutes, you gank a lane, you take the first tower, you then take the Herald, you basically go back to base, spend all the gold that you just got from all them tower platings, which most of the time you're going to complete Trinity Force and your boots. Then you go to Herald, you fight Herald, you win the Herald fight, you use that Herald mid lane, and you can take 2 towers mid lane. And then at that point, the game is completely snowballed and the game is completely lost. That happens a lot at the moment. I've seen it over in China. I've seen it in a lot of EU games as well, a lot of high elo EU games. So they're trying to nerf that, and they're trying to stop some of these crazy pushing that's happening at the moment, especially with the inhibitor towers as well. Because of course, after you take that inner tower, when you win one more fight, you can take an inhibitor tower really early on in the game. So they are nerfing they are buffing the inhibitor turrets, that are buffing the armor and mag resist to make sure that you don't take them down as easy as what you did before. And now you have the anti-snowball shield mechanic, which back-to-back tower pushes through inner and inhibitor turrets can feel frustrating, which is what I just mentioned, even though this mentions the inner and the inhibitor towers. This is another idea that you can have when you take the first tower in bot lane or in top lane before 6 minutes. You can use that Herald to take the inhibitor tower and the inner tower. So that's another way that you can go about it. This is a lot more riskier tactic to use. It has been used before. It's a lot more riskier than just taking like 2 mid towers, for example, but it is a way that you can play the game. We've adjusted this shield mechanic to give teams more breathing room and slow down the pace of battles. So before 11 minutes and 30 seconds, if the first inhibitor tower on the lane was destroyed, the inhibitor tower in that lane gains a 1600 shield. The new thing now, before 11 minutes and 30 seconds, for every inner turret that gets destroyed in the lane, the corresponding inhibitor turret gains a 1600 shield. This honestly should be used, and this honestly should be a thing for the first tower and the second tower as well. Because like I said, the idea that I just mentioned around the meta at the moment, where you take the first tower before the 6 minute mark, and then you use that Rift Herald to take the mid tower and then the second mid tower, they should do this exact same thing for that as well. Because the other idea that I just mentioned, that is before 9 minutes, when the first tower gets destroyed, the second tower gets a shield. But if you do that before the Rift Herald spawns, then that shield is going to go. And also, you won't get the shield on the first tower that you destroy, even if it's before 9 minutes. And that's exactly what they're doing with this as well, with the whole inner tower and inhibitor tower. So if you destroy one inner tower at 11 minutes 30 seconds, the inhibitor tower gets a 1600 shield. But the second inner tower that you destroy, it will not get the 1600 shield at the moment. But now for every inner tower that you destroy, the corresponding inhibitor turret gains a 1600 shield. So they're stopping multiple inhibitors from being taken down super early on in the game, which, like I said, is just snowballing the game completely out of control. I do think this is a good step in the right direction. Even I do kind of like the new pacing of the game. It was really obnoxious that games were ending in like 12-13 minutes super quickly. So I do like this change. Like I said, I do think that this change needs to come to the first tower and the second tower before 9 minutes as well. And then a few bug fixes. Fix a bug where the adaptive force granted by Baron Nashor was abnormally high, and fix a bug where the Fantasy Orchestra would sometimes get stuck in certain positions. Like I said, not the biggest patch. This is very rare that we get a patch that is coming out 1 week after one of the biggest patches that we have ever seen. But of course, some champions like Miss Fortune and Ambessa needed to get nerfed. Shyvana 100% needs to get buffed. Not too sure about Kha'Zix and Master Yi, even though both these champions were pretty underperforming. And of course, the Lee Sin buff is going to be pretty scary to play against, but we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully you enjoyed this patch rundown for Wild Rift patch 6.2a. As I mentioned, I will be releasing my full tier list tomorrow for the new season and for patch 6.2. So make sure you keep an eye out for that one. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.